Can a mother and daughter build a true friendship? Join me and my daughter Lissy today as we talk about that on Family Vision. Okay, welcome back. We are here for part 2 of our conversation about the mother-daughter relationship. And today we're going to talk about these two important components, which is both friendship and honor, and how they come together in the mother-daughter relationship. So here we are, back to our conversation. Lissy, again, can you get us started on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think where to really begin with this idea of honor, and this really plays a huge role in just my own personal testimony and a work that God did in my life after I graduated high school. But to sort of make a long story short, when I was growing up, I was a pastor's kid, and I was constantly being told, whether it be from teachers or people at church, what a good kid I was. And people would be like, "Oh, Lissy, you're so great. You're so wise. You're so mature. You're so wonderful." And there actually came a point where I was like,
this is such a great story, and it's so true, but I have to always interject here the preschool stories because you don't really get the full
Sure.
appreciation of this. Because when she was in 4-year-old preschool, I kid you not, her teachers loved her so much that on one occasion at the parent-teacher conference, the teacher looked me in the eye and said, "Does she walk on water?" That's a true story. I was like, are you kidding me? It was amazing.
Well, needless to say, I had all of this affirmation from people in my public life. And meanwhile, at home, as I was getting ready to graduate high school, I was hearing things from my parents that were like, "Hey, Lissy, you're pretty mature in these areas. You were really rude to your siblings the other day. You're really slacking in your responsibilities around the house." And I was getting this feedback from them and hearing all these positive things from other people. And I finally got to this point of frustration where I was like, "Oh my goodness, Mom and Dad, everyone tells me how great I am all the time. Why can't you guys just hop on the bandwagon for once and agree with them?" But really, at the end of the day, God had to really show me so many immaturities that I held on to that I really just wasn't aware of at that point. And one of the biggest ways that he kind of revealed areas of my heart that needed changing was around this idea of honor. And so I want to start by just talking about this verse, Exodus 20:12. It's probably a verse that you're familiar with from the 10 Commandments, but it says, "Honor your father and your mother, that your days may be long in the land the Lord your God is giving you." And growing up in church, I heard this all the time, honor your father and mother. And to be perfectly honest, I wasn't a rebellious kid. I did what I was told. I wasn't breaking all of these rules. And so I genuinely thought to myself, I've got this commandment down. Like, I'm good. I honor my father and mother. But really, it took the Lord and the Holy Spirit bringing this commandment back to my mind and thinking to myself, well, yes, I was obedient to my parents. I did what I was told. I didn't break the rules. But was that really honoring them? The 5th commandment doesn't just say obey your parents. We're called to honor our parents. So I remember looking up the definition of the word honor. And the definition is to hold in high respect or to revere. And I had to honestly ask myself, do I hold my parents in high respect? And the answer was no. I wasn't holding them in high respect. Yes, I was obedient, but more often than not, the heart behind that obedience was full of bitterness or annoyance or defiance. And so I think we really have to switch our mentality when it comes to this commandment to think that, honor combines our actions and our attitude. You can have obedience without honor. A sort of classic example of this is, say your teenager comes home and you ask them to clean the dishes after dinner. And I remember this happening on multiple occasions where it was a long day at school. You come home, you have homework, and Mom's like, can you help with the dishes?
Yeah, it's your turn.
So move over to the sink. Stupid dishes. I'm the only one who does the dishes. No one else works around here. It's only me. Of course, the inner monologue in my mind. And, did I obey my mom? Yes, I did the dishes. I did what I was told. But did I honor my mom? Well, no, because the attitude of my heart was full of grumbling and complaining towards her. And so really this idea of honor, it starts in our hearts. and it overflows from there. And so I really had to confess that to the Lord, my lack of honor for my parents, and asking him, God, help my actions to be a reflection of what's in my heart, not the other way around, with the actions that were on the surface level obedient, but a heart that was really, breaking one of his commandments.
And let's be honest, it's not an easy command. I think we can glaze over it and assume that it's an easy command, and it really isn't. And as I was dealing with this issue with Lissy and my firstborn daughter, in reality, I was also personally dealing with that myself, because during my, probably was starting in my late 20s, I think I went through a period of just having a hard time honoring my mom in many ways. And as I actually prayed through that with a friend, part of that, I realized that when I was in high school, I was very much allowed, and I'm not saying this to be negative about my parents at all, because they really were doing their best. My mom was a Christian. My dad was not a Christian. And so, like I say, I grew up in a Christian home, in many ways. We went to church, and my mom, I'd become a believer when I was young. I wouldn't say that we didn't practice family worship. We didn't talk about a lot of spiritual things at home. So in reality, during my high school years, I think I got away with a lot of dishonor towards my mom. Like everything that Lissy is talking about was definitely played out in my life. And not only dishonor, but I even go a little step deeper with a spirit of judgment towards her. I think it's one thing that's really hard in the mother-daughter relationship is this spirit of judgment, because, see, our daughters have a front row seat to all of our faults, and we cannot hide any of our faults from them. And so as a daughter then, you can feel sort of like you have every right to judge your mom. And I think that can come out. And I know that's what I was doing to my mom in my high school years. And in reality, even when I was trying to not do those things as an adult and trying to learn better ways, I think there were things that I was doing that was still triggering those old habits that my mom would then get hurt again because there had been a pattern. In Galatians 6:7, it says, "Do not be deceived. God is not mocked. You will reap what you sow." And I can remember, Lissy, in dealing with the dishonor I was experiencing from you, many times telling you that story, that I was reaping negative things in my relationship with my mom because I had planted those seeds of dishonor and judgment. They're hard weeds to pull out. You can't just, they don't come out overnight. And so we would have these conversations, and why I stressed to you and had to keep kind of repeating it's important for you to honor me. And this is what I want to say to moms right now. It's so important to understand that if we as moms don't teach our daughters to honor us, really no one else will do it. It is our job. The teacher's not going to do it, the Sunday school teacher, the coach. Your husband may be a critical person who can help you do that, but you know how it is. Like, you're spending that time with your, mother-daughter time, and it's like you have to kind of call it out when it's happening, and it's not easy to do, and there's not a lot in our culture that really encourages us to do that. So, but at the same time, I also want to say, like, we want to try as moms to make it as easy, right, for our daughters to honor us as possible. And I know for me, some of the things that I, had to really work on myself is making sure that what Lissy talked about, that she was getting positive feedback from me inside the home, not just outside of the home. Because I could see, even going back to that preschool story when the teacher asked me if she walked on water. That was the same teacher who also told me she had to play Mary in the nativity scene because, of course, no other girl in the class could play Mary as well as Lissy. So that was sort of what I was dealing with. And yet Lissy would come home and I was dealing with some negative behavior at home. But my eyes were opened even back then in those preschool years that, wow, if I don't make sure that Lissy's getting positive reinforcement from me at home and that you're getting some positive messages, she's going to have all of her positive reinforcement outside of the house and nothing but negative in the house. And that is not what we want. We need to make sure that we're a source of positive, like a positive place that, she wants to be home and she wants to be in a relationship with me. And that has a lot to do with who I am and what I'm doing in our home.
Yeah, I think that's so true. And just continuing on a little bit, now that our relationship has obviously changed over the years. And I think that it's interesting that obviously in the parent-child relationship, the obedience piece is not always going to be there, but the honor, the commandment to honor, it's a lifelong commandment. It doesn't say honor your parents until you are 18. It says, honor your parents, just like you talked about in your relationship with your mom. And now I'm thinking about my relationship with you and raising a daughter and my relationship with her. And so I think that having, again, that long-term mindset when it comes to this commandment of what does it look like to show honor to my parents, as a child, as a teenager, as an adult. And I love how you also said, just as we see the failures of our parents, having that, not being quick to judge and knowing that it's not our place to judge.
Right. That's so important.
And that's difficult, for many people, because we as kids often have a front seat to what's going on in our parents' lives at a lot of different phases.
Right.
And so I think that I love how you brought that up of just needing to fight against that mindset of judgment. But also really at the end of the day, and coming to that sort of second topic we were going to talk about, is when we're thinking about building friendship with one another, honor, it's what lays the foundation for that friendship to grow. And so if you're thinking about your relationship with your parents or maybe your daughter or your son and you want that friendship, well, we have to start with honor, because without honor, that friendship is never going to have a healthy foundation. And so,
I wanted you to touch on, too, just some specifics on how you can show honor, both in their presence and then also when you're not with them, too. That's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And I feel like this is something I'm still learning how to do appropriately, because honor, it's one thing when we're face to face, and you're in the room with your parents and you're talking to them. It's another when they're not around.
Right.
And so how you're talking about your parents with other people, how you're talking about them, even in your own mind, the dialogue that you might play in your head about your parents, all of those things are equally important, and when it comes to this commandment of honor.
So good. And I am so thankful, Lissy, for the friendship that we have now. It's such a treasure, but you just said it so well, that honor lays that foundation. It's so important that you really can't, you can't get to the next level. And I think as parents, we want to have friendships with our kids. That is a good goal. Obviously, we're not going to be buddy with them when they're, in the house, and the obedience is such a central part of that. When you said, obedience is that time when you're training them and they're living under your roof, and that's a certain phase, but you're always thinking about that lifelong friendship, because that is the ultimate goal. And it's not going to be about obedience then, but it's always going to have this component of honor, and we can't skip the honor to get to the friendship. And I think that's common in culture today, right? We want to skip honor and just go to friendship, and then we wonder why there's problems, because in reality, we have a very close friendship, but my friendship with you is never going to look the same, right, as your friendship as some of your closest friends. It's a different type of relationship. It is a different type of friendship. And again, I'm just so thankful for where we are now, but it's been work on both of our parts to get here, and continues to be. We have to continue to work on that. So
absolutely.
Anyway, Lissy, I would just like, again, for you to just bring up some of the resources that you have as we continue this topic, just in case we have some new people listening today.
Yes. So The Heart of Your Teen, this is a book that I actually wrote a few years ago, I think my freshman year of college, I started writing this. And it's all about helping parents build heart-connected relationship with their kids. And I talk a lot about this idea of honor in this book, of not only, a teenager's mentality on the idea of honor and that distinction between honor and obedience, but also just as parents, how can we help our teenagers honor us.
Right.
And so I talk a lot about in this book, The Heart of Your Teen. And this is available on our website, visionaryfam.com. And it's also great for if there's a group of parents together, or maybe a group of moms who have some daughters who want to read through this. We actually have had moms and daughters read through this together as a little, verifying. The daughters be like, yeah, Mom, that's actually true. You should do that. So that's been a great resource for that.
Absolutely. And go ahead and hit on Living for Christ, because honestly, this is something I feel like I have to keep doing with my own kids at home. And we really need to get it out again. I feel like it's important because you can do it over and over.
So Living for Christ at Home, this is actually a free devotional that is available on our website. So you can download it for free. And it's for teenagers, and it walks through 4 essential virtues for living out your faith at home with your family. So we talk about a lot that our home, who you are at home is who you really are. That's the real you. It's where our true character comes out. And it's oftentimes where our worst character comes out. And it's the hardest place to often live out our faith. So this book walks through these virtues and how to live for Christ at home with your family.
So if this conversation has been important to you, we would love to hear from you at podcast@visionaryfam.com. Please give us your comments and your prayer requests. We really enjoy hearing from our listeners and just finding out how this conversation connected with you. So again, thank you for joining us today here at Family Vision.